We're at Clash in Paris and we kick off the show in style. It's time for the World Heavyweight Championship Fatal 4-Way match. CM Punk, LA Knight, Jey Uso and Seth Rollins, who will walk out of France as world champion. Well, the match is on and all three good guys swarm the Visionary. The consequences of his actions have caught up to him, although surprisingly, CM Punk is the one to break up the alliance, which leads to everything breaking down between all four men. And with each pin attempt, Seth Rollins gets closer and closer to losing his title, although he's always able to break it up just in the nick of time. But this stops when Jey Uso manages to spear Seth Rollins on the outside of the ring. Yet Jey can't capitalize on this as he gets taken out by CM Punk. Yet as Punk gets back into the ring, he gets folded in half by a BFT courtesy of LA Knight. But as he goes into the cover, Braun Breaker drags him out of the ring. The megastar had the match won, and he's just been beaten down by Braun. That is until Penta comes out and fends him off. He's back to fighting against the Vision, though whilst Braun Breaker is occupied, Bronson Reed isn't. Or so you think, as Roman Reigns cuts him off, with them two brawling to the back. All the while, Seth Rollins looks to take full advantage of a down CM Punk, although he gets caught in a position to go to sleep, yet he manages to get under the apron as Jey Uso spears the straight edge savior down. Then Seth looks to springboard back into the ring, though he gets cut in half by a spear out of nowhere, as it's now Jey who ascends to the heavens. Yet as he looks for the Uso splash, we see Ilya Dragunov pop up on the apron. Jey is confused, and Ilya pushes him into a Seth Rollins pedigree. As whilst Ilya Dragunov watches on, the Architect plants the Yeet Man down to the depths of hell with a stomp. And just like that, Seth Rollins escapes Paris as World Heavyweight Champion. And it's all because of the Mad Dragon, the newest member of the Vision, Ilya Dragunov. But where do we go from here? Well, before the next match, we pan to the crowd as we see none other than the NXT champion Obafemi. But he isn't the only NXT member in the house, as we see another champion, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, Trick Williams. And lastly, to round things off, we also see the father of NXT Silver and Black, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Although now, it's time for a banger, as it's time for a Donnybrook match between Sheamus and Rusev. And unsurprisingly, with the stipulation comes utter carnage. Chairs are bent, kendo sticks are shattered, tables are broken in half. But neither brute will lie down. They keep on fighting and fighting and fighting with endless parades of violence. Though both men evade the other's finishing blows. Rusev keeps on ducking the bro kick, Sheamus keeps on fighting out the accolade, but eventually the Celtic Warrior gets trapped inside the submission move. He's got nowhere to go, yet he won't give up, and after a struggle of a lifetime, he gets out of it. And afterwards, even manages to hit the brogue. But Rusev rolls to the outside. Sheamus is heartbroken, though he keeps up on the offensive and decides to even grab a barbed wire baseball bat. And after smacking it into the Bulgarian's gut, he follows this up with a second and even third bro kick, before finally going into the cover to pick up the big win. Sheamus puts his demons to bed, and now he can focus in on accomplishing his big final goal in WWE. Become Grand Slam champion by winning the Intercontinental title. But can he achieve this feat by the end of the year? Well, before we find out, we see Bronson Reed and Roman Reigns brawling up the ramp. They never even stopped, and once the match is officially underway, the brawling merely continues. Although this transitions into big power moves being traded left, right and centre as if they're going out of business. And whilst Bronson Reed dominates, this all changes with a well-timed Superman punch. As it's now all things Roman, the tribal chief is overwhelming the tribal thief. So here comes Ilya Dragunov once again, though his equalizer ends up being a man who just got traded to SmackDown, a man he has history with, Sami Zayn, as both men start a fight and they make their way towards the back. All the while, Roman Reigns is still on top as he goes for a spear, yet Bronson is able to quickly grab him and drop the OTC on his head. And he then goes to the top rope, and we all know what comes next. A tsunami. As with the most dangerous move in WWE connecting, Bronson Reed wins. He has retained his Shula Fala. It's the biggest win of his entire career. He has just conquered a tribal chief, and on top of that, stolen another pair of his shoes. He's seemingly unstoppable. And Becky Lynch agrees, as after walking away from Seth Rollins, she comes into contact with none other than Julia, who says, "You come on my show, steal my spotlight? I never forget that." It's an ominous warning from the Women's United States Champion, but the Women's Intercontinental Champion doesn't care, as she's ready to go to war against Nikki Bella. Yet Nikki doesn't come alone, as Kiana James brings out the lifeless corpse, and after discarding her, she makes way for the Women's United States Champion Julia. And with the match officially sanctioned by both general managers, the champion versus champion match is on. And Becky is now terrified of the beautiful madness, as she constantly tries to avoid her. But eventually, she has to face the music, which leads to her being absolutely annihilated by the Women's United States Champion. As with a Northern Lights bomb, she goes into the cover and picks up the impressive win. And on top of that, it's also her biggest win of her WWE career. And as she leaves the corpse behind, we see Adam Pearce on the ramp, who says, "Well, now you two are on an equal playing field, and Nikki, you're up. Becky, you're up, so let's still have the match." Becky Lynch is irate, and Nikki Bella is ready to fight. As with both women nowhere near 100%, the second match is on. And Becky tries to immediately end the match, which fails, as Nikki starts to pummel her all across the ring. Though as she goes for a Rack Attack 2.0, Becky gets out of it and locks her in a disarmer. Nikki has nowhere to go, but she fights out of it regardless, as she goes for another finishing blow. But once again, Becky fights out of it, yet she can't hit anything this time, as the Rack Attack 2.0 is actually able to connect. But Becky Lynch kicks out at 2, so she goes for a big dive, yet Nikki misses, as this allows for Becky Lynch to nail the manhandle slam and just barely retain the Women's Intercontinental Championship in a short fiery match. Would things have been different had both women been 100%? Well, no one knows, as Big Time Beck celebrated her title. All the while, Julia watches on from the ramp. Is this a tease of things to come? Well, before we find out, we look to the crowd and see none other than Salesman Pete telling you, the viewer, to subscribe once again. Although up next, we need to find out when number one contender to Cody Rhodes' WWE Championship between Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. Who will be the American Nightmare's next challenger? Well, the match is on, and it just shows how much both men can't stand each other. They're just fighting with no care for their own safety, which we see when Randy Orton RKO's Drew McIntyre through the announcer's table. But due to his back, it takes extra long to get back into the ring and into the cover. And thanks to this, the Scottish Warrior is able to survive. So he eventually goes into the corner and lines him up for a punt. Yet Drew avoids this, and he manages to connect a Future Shock DDT. Though the Viper still has some venom left in his veins. But he's still being battered by a Scottish psychopath, even though he doesn't back down. And this leads to him eventually being able to come back into the match with some signature Apex Predator offense. As with a draping DDT, he signals for the RKO. But Drew counters it, and he goes for a Claymore, though Orton manages to pick him up, yet his back fails him, which allows for the Claymore kick to finally connect. And with Drew collapsing on top of him, he wins. He's punched his ticket to a match with Cody Rhodes, which is officially made for WrestlePalooza, so long as Cody is medically cleared. And if he's not, well, we might just see a new WWE champion. But now, it's time for the main event of the evening, as it's time for Logan Paul to take on the greatest of all time, John Cena, who's going to walk out of Paris the winner. Well, the match is on, and it's all things Cena. Every time Paul tries to get back into the match, he gets shut down by the leader of the C Nation. Yet all it takes is one sidestep, which allows for the Maverick to gain back the reins of the match, which of course gets him heavy boos. And he soaks in it, he bathes in it, as he slowly and methodically works over the GOAT. Although with just one mistake, Cena manages to get back into the match with all of his classic offense. Shoulder block, spinning back suplex, and of course a 5-knuckle shuffle connect, all in quick succession. Only one more move of the 5 moves of doom remain, though as he goes for the attitude adjustment, Logan's leg inadvertently clocks the referee. But Cena doesn't realise, connecting the AA and going into the cover, until finally realising the mess he's in. And whilst he ponders his next move, the chessboard gets turned upside down, as Drew McIntyre claymores Big Match John before just swinging at him relentlessly. He needs help, and help does indeed arrive. AJ Styles is here, and he fends off Drew McIntyre with a phenomenal forearm before going face to face with the man who used to run the place. Brock Lesnar is back, and he's charging towards the ring. Styles tries to guard him, but he gets F5'd down, which only leaves John Cena all alone to fend for himself against the Beast. And he actually almost manages to AA him, yet Brock gets out of it before F5'ing him as well. And then he just leaves, thinking the damage is done, as with the referee now up, Logan Paul is able to go into the cover. And he doesn't pick up the win! Cena has a life, so the Maverick goes for the one lucky punch, which Cena is able to evade, as he hits not one attitude adjustment, but 2 in one go, before locking in the STF. And with nowhere for him to go, Logan Paul taps out. John Cena wins, he rises above, he proves his status as a GOAT, though his celebration doesn't last long, as he quickly goes and grabs a steel chair, as it looks like Brock Lesnar will attack again, but he doesn't, as he simply walks away. All the while, Cena makes some things official. Firstly, that at WrestlePalooza, he will take on and vanquish the Beast Brock Lesnar. And then, at Crown Jewel, whether he's Intercontinental Champion or not by then, he will also take on AJ Styles. It's 2 humongous announcements made at the end of Clash in Paris, as the show ends with a worn-out Styles and a worn-out Cena standing face to face. But where do we go from here? Well, we're just gonna have to wait and see. As if you like this story, I think this might interest you.